We all know drops can cause injury, be fatal, or result in damage to equipment. Even the smallest of objects dropping at height can cause serious damage. And we understand the emotional impact on families and colleagues. Our aim here is to help you to prevent drops from happening. We're going to cover practical ways to help prevent drops in three main categories: working at height, lifting operations, and maintenance. We will look at what you need to do before you start work and during every task. If the job you're about to do involves working at height or at a location where there is a potential of tools or equipment dropping to a lower level, causing serious harm, for example, working in towers, temporary scaffold platforms, walkways, etc., then drops prevention always starts before you begin the job and should be part of the planning phase. Take the time to think about your work area and the size of the drop zone and the correct, effective positioning of barriers to keep everyone clear. Think about the tools and equipment you'll use. Check they are in good condition and only take tools with you that you'll need to complete the task. It's a good idea to take note of the number of tools you take up with you. Make sure they're attached securely to your tool belt or bag using the correct lanyards or securing devices. Think about how you can prevent objects from falling. Check your pockets for any loose items. Sources of dropped objects include small tools, nuts, bolts, nails, screws, washers, and Allen keys. Even pens and pencils can be potential dropped objects. Check for any gaps that equipment, tools, or small items could fall through. Make sure tow or kickboards are in place on your scaffold and netting is placed around the runners. If you are working over grating, think about using a mat, board, or tarpaulin to make sure the grating is covered. Do you have the right fall protection equipment available to use? Remember, you need to prevent yourself from being a dropped object too. Before starting the task, always check ropes, lanyards, or other securing devices. Are they twisted or frayed? Could they snap or work loose? Take a minute to check them. Have you done everything you can to make sure there are no opportunities for objects to drop? If so, you're ready to begin your work, but remember, always stay alert. Conditions can change suddenly when you're at sea, with sudden vessel movements which can displace tools or equipment lying on deck, or when you're on shore, wet weather or strong winds can mean that something may become a risk that wasn't before. When you reach the worksite, you should always check any fixed equipment or plant. Bolts or other fixings or fastenings may have been secure the last time you worked there, but remember, things can change. Look for any bolts, end caps, redundant materials or tools that may have been left by a previous work party or that could have come loose with vibration or weathered with rust. Always use the right tool for the job, even if it means you have to stop the job and go down again to collect it. If you do have to leave the worksite at any point, first, make sure you check you have secured any bolts, fastening or fittings properly and not left any loose replacement parts behind. On completion of your task and before leaving, check that all the tools that were taken up are secure in your work belt or bag. How many tools did you take up with you? Make sure you have them all before you climb down. Always take care on your descent or ascent. Watch out for handrails, brackets or fittings that could snag your tool belt or bag. If you become caught and feel resistance, always stop and check what the problem is and free yourself carefully. Never use force to free yourself. You may not be working at height, but when there is work above or below you, make sure you do not cross any barriers or enter into any barriered zone, Never put yourself in the line of fire. If you ever see anyone in the drop zone, speak up. It could help prevent an incident. Let's look at a working at height scenario. During maintenance operations, a light fixture became dislodged from its anchor point, possibly due to vibration. It didn't fall as the cable was still attached, but it hadn't been checked to make sure that it was secure before the work in the surrounding area was carried out. Nobody was hurt on that occasion, but if it had fallen, there could have been serious consequences. After this incident, it was also identified that the drop zone was not wide enough for the work at height being undertaken. This means that anyone standing behind the barrier may have had a false sense of security and could realistically been hit. As part of your stop, look and think habit, you should always look at ground level too. Is the drop zone wide enough for any dropped object? Could the object be deflected as it falls? Could it bounce? If in doubt, always extend the drop zone. It's better to over than underestimate the extent of the drop zone. Are there sufficient signs and barriers in place? If it's possible, conduct any working at height activities at low activity times when there are less people around. When it comes to drops, we all know how dangerous lifting operations can be, but with careful planning, good practice and communication, we can prevent drops happening. Before any lifting work is carried out, think prevention and plan ahead by including the prevention of dropped objects and take the time to think things through. All loads should be checked thoroughly before loading, unloading or lifting. Look for loose objects. These could be anywhere, not just on top of the load, so remember to look within the load structure or frame itself. When you check the load, look out for loose end caps and thread protectors. Anything else? Has anyone left anything on top of the load? Even if you checked earlier, always check again just before the lift. Before the lift, confirm that lids, covers and doors are all closed and secure. Check pockets in containers for any loose debris, tools or loose strops. Ensure that all joints or fastenings are in place and in good condition. If there are any missing or they are rusted, even a controlled laydown can give enough of a jolt to cause part of the load to drop. You should also consider protrusions such as handles or padlocks that may snap off if any part of the load is knocked. When opening newly unloaded containers, always take care as the contents can be displaced during transit and fall out when the container doors are opened. Check that loads were secured and netted at the loading point. You should always position yourself to the side of the container doors when opening them. Does the load include tubulars? If so, check there is nothing inside and add end caps. Next, look at the lifting equipment. Always check that the equipment listed in the lifting plan is used and that it's in good condition. Confirm that it has been checked and certified fit for the weight and size of the load. Make sure that all C fastenings or hold downs are released and clear of the load. Make sure the set down or pickup position is clear, well lit, and with an adequate area to be able to access the load. Remember, bad weather and rough seas could affect both the visibility and movement of the load. Think about the path the load will take and ensure that it avoids going over anyone who is working. Put barriers in place in line with the agreed drop zone. Any activity involving personnel under or close to the lift path should be suspended and cleared of the personnel until it is safe for them to return. All personnel involved in the lift should understand their role. Having extra pairs of eyes and different vantage points on deck during lifting operations helps the banksman manage the lift safely. Effective communication is vital, so if you are ever concerned about the safety of a lift, you should always alert the banksman. Look out for any unexpected or sudden movement of the load, or if you suspect the crane is too close to anything which could result in a clash, alert the banksman, who will radio the crane operator immediately. Barriers are put in place to protect people. If you ever see anyone within the barriered area, stop the lift operation until they have moved out of the barriered zone. Speak up immediately and ask them to move to a safe area. Have you done everything you can to make sure that nothing can drop during lifting? If so, you're ready to begin your work. But remember, always stay alert. Conditions can change suddenly when you're at sea, and bad weather, reduced visibility, and vessel movement means that something may become a risk that wasn't before. Even when you're on shore, conditions can change. Let's look at a lifting scenario. When loading an empty refrigerated container onto an offshore supply ship, the refrigerator clip-on generator unit dropped while landing the container onto the deck. There was no abnormal impact force. Investigation revealed that one of the two twist locks was missing and the condition of the mounting scars were rusty. On impact, the second twist lock sheared. Nobody had noticed that there was a missing twist lock throughout the whole transportation period. Thorough inspection before loading would have prevented this incident. It's important to think about the prevention of dropped objects before, during, and after any maintenance tasks are to be carried out. You should follow the guidance in the risk assessment and pay attention during the toolbox talk. Before starting work, inspect your work area. Look out for anything that may have been left behind on earlier shifts or previous maintenance work. Fittings and fastenings can work loose with vibration or deteriorate over time. When maintenance is routine or planned, you should know the tools required and understand the task and what to expect. Always consider where you place spares, equipment or tools, and use the right tool for the job. When an emergency repair is required, there are differences. There is the added pressure of time making the focus on the repair and not so much on drops. When temporary repairs are made, the correct approved parts should be obtained and fitted as soon as possible. Until they are, the condition of the temporary repairs should be monitored closely to make sure they remain intact. Over time, temporary repairs can deteriorate and lead to parts coming away and dropping below. Be observant at all times and make sure you know how important effective communication is between different shifts, work parties and subcontractors. You should take extra care when working in restricted space to avoid working awkwardly, which may cause you to drop something. Let's look at a maintenance scenario. It was observed that the split pin in a fall arrestor was loose. The job was immediately stopped and the split pin replaced. After investigation, it was found that these pins had previously been identified as not being fit for purpose and were scheduled to be replaced. That was several months before, but the pins in the fall arresters had not been replaced. It was also difficult to observe the pins due to the position of the covers, so further measures were taken to remove the box. Make sure that you can observe equipment properly and make special efforts to access and check awkward areas. Why were the split pins in the fall arresters not replaced? Always think about the impact a maintenance task could have further down the line. Let's summarize what we've learned in this video. Vigilance is key. Stop, look, and think of ways to prevent objects dropping before starting work. Always secure tools and equipment when working at height, using approved, fit-for-purpose securing devices. Check fixed plant or equipment for anything loose, damaged or rusty. Check the security of all loads and the lifting equipment before the lift. Never place yourself within a drop zone or enter a barriered area. Remain vigilant throughout work at height or when lifting, loading, or unloading. If you see a loose object anywhere, pick it up and secure it, then report it. Stop the job if something is not safe. Communication with other work parties and contractors is key